Look, Trump has a candidate in Brazil, and Trump's candidate is Flávio Bolsonaro. What we need to do is ask ourselves why, right? Is it because of his good looks? Is it just because Trump has an ideological affinity, pure and simple? I don't think so, right? The American government is concerned with the interests of Americans.
How important are these parties for the president's re-election?
No way, Flávio Bolsonaro couldn't even unify his own family, right? He fought with Michelle. It's unbelievable, let alone the right-wing parties. It's a candidacy whose weaknesses everyone can see, right? Flávio Bolsonaro is involved with these things. Every day there's a new scandal. I think he doesn't even sleep at night imagining the risk of some video coming out the next morning, right? In other words, he's deeply compromised. It's important for us to remember that Flávio Bolsonaro wasn't even Jair's plan A. What Jair wanted, since he couldn't be a candidate, was to put Eduardo forward, who's over there in the United States. And he prepared to put Eduardo forward. But Eduardo messed up so much over there in the United States with this whole tariff blitz that he made himself politically unviable. Now he was even fired from the federal police for abandoning his post. He had already been stripped of his position as a congressman. And he can't even set foot in Brazil, and rightly so, because the work he did, betraying the country, harming the nation, is criminal. How did Eduardo rule himself out? It was because the candidate was Flávio. And Flávio, everyone already knew. People in politics know. You journalists know how much baggage Flávio Bolsonaro had. How long Flávio Bolsonaro's rap sheet was. Since the time he was a state representative back in Rio de Janeiro, it was Queiroz' salary kickback scheme. It was money laundering in a chocolate shop. 51 properties bought with cash. That poorly explained 6 million mansion in Brasilia. Now there's more. The 140 million from Vocaro came in. By the way, where's the invoice? The accounting for the 61 million he promised 2 months ago that he would deliver in 30 days and didn't. And nothing happens. That is, unless more things come up. So he's such a shady guy. He lies, then denies it. In other words, his word can't be trusted. I don't think even the right-wing parties, which lean more toward Bolsonarism, feel confident about going with Flávio Bolsonaro. That's what we're experiencing right now, right? He doesn't unify the family. He doesn't unify the parties. He doesn't unify the right. Yeah, that's the situation with Flávio Bolsonaro. Now, you don't win an election at the last minute, and we're going to look for, in every way, alliances, dialogues, and a broad coalition. I've been saying something, Taina. Yeah, the broad coalition in 2022 was a broad coalition for democracy. There was, in fact, a threat to democracy in Brazil, right? Not only because of his statements against voting machines and rejecting election results, but also due to Jair Bolsonaro's actions and behavior. That's actually why he's in jail. Now, in 2026, the issue that brings together the broad front is national sovereignty. It's the defense of Brazil. We are going to build a broad front from now until October for the defense of Brazil. Yes, that's the main issue. Brazil is under attack. Brazil has now become the second country with the most tariffs in the world, only behind China, with sanctions and punishments from Donald Trump because of our sovereignty, for us not bowing down to American interests, right? There is a group of traitors to the country, right? In a political faction on the far right of Brazil that wants to hand over the country, the national interests, to a foreign power. So what's at stake this time is the defense of Brazil. And I think we'll find people in the political center who defend Brazil, in parties that wouldn't be with us because of ideological affinity or government program, but who might be with President Lula. Sectors of these parties you mentioned in defense of national interest against this submissive stance that the Bolsonaros have had. I think it's more than clear that these tariffs implemented by Donald Trump, by the United States, are not technical or economic at all. These are tariffs imposed as a political sanction because Brazil didn't agree to put its sovereignty on the table. Let's be clear about it. When Marco Rubio said there was a lack of effort in the negotiation, what did he want? Actually, what he wanted was for Brazil to put rare earths, the exploitation of rare earths by American companies, on the table, for Brazil to put our economic and geopolitical interests on the table. Just like Flávio Bolsonaro did, saying that if he were elected president, the United States could command the transition team, supervise the transition team. He didn't want a negotiation with a sovereign nation. He wanted subordination. It's more than clear that this is the intention of Donald Trump and the United States foreign policy led by Marco Rubio, and that won't be on the table. Right? All commercial negotiations, all discussions with business people, all bilateral trade dialogue has been and will continue to be conducted by the Brazilian government. Now, sovereignty is not negotiable, right? I think the best answer will come from the Brazilian people, who will give it in October. For those who want to subordinate Brazil, for those who have a colonial mindset inside the White House, and for those traitors to the nation who have served them here in domestic politics.
Minister, how are you? It's Taina. I wanted to dig a little deeper into tariffs, right? That tariff blitz. That was the topic of the last few weeks, with the outcome yesterday of a new tariff of 12.5%, 12.5%. We heard a lot from many sectors here, people from the government too, and the negotiators themselves with the United States, setting the elections as an important milestone to understand how to proceed, right? So there is a feeling that the United States government is waiting for the elections to maybe negotiate with the new government. At least that's the feeling we hear, right? Depending on what the result will be. Well, yes, but if the result is favorable to President Lula, if he is re-elected, will there be room for a different negotiation, for a different stance from the United States than what they've had so far?
Look, Taina, the people at the table are the ones who can speak to the conditions for negotiation, the Ministry of Development, Industry and Trade, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is handling the more detailed dialogue. Let's put it this way, point by point on the trade agenda. The US government wants Brazil's critical minerals to serve as an alternative to what they used to get from China, and now they're in an open economic dispute with China. The US government wants to establish a relationship of control, a colonial relationship, it's important to say, with Brazil.
Minister, you were a candidate for mayor of São Paulo in 2024 and took part in the electoral debates. Today, there is a division in the Planalto Palace. Some people think Lula should go to the debates, while others think he should skip them. Do you support President Lula joining the televised debates?
Olha, look, of course, that's always a decision for the candidate, in this case, President Lula. Now, we need to evaluate what these debates are going to be like, right? Can you imagine a debate with Flávio, Bolsonaro, Caiado, Zema, and the guy from MBL? That's not a debate, that's a circus. So it's necessary to see what the conditions are, what the rules are, right? President Lula going to the debate just to watch Zema eat a banana, peel and all? President Lula going to the debate, right, just to see, the MBL kid making clips for social media? We need to see, right? I think this, of course, is a decision for the campaign. It's a decision for the president, but it will naturally depend on the rules and conditions of these debates.
We spoke with Guilherme Boulos, Minister of the General Secretariat of the Presidency of the Republic. Since we're reaching the end of the news program, we can't extend the interview any further, Minister, but I really appreciate once again joining us on Bastidores. Good work. See you next time.